Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Inner Work and this video testimonial. I am thrilled to welcome Julie Brock today for this conversation. So, Julie is an incredible coach. She helps and supports other healers, coaches, holistic practitioners, which is amazing. We need more of that in the world. And she just completed the mastery track of my Akashic Records certification program. So we're talking about the work in that program and how the records have made an impact in Julie's life. So let's start at the beginning, basically with the story of what drew you to the Akashic Records in the first place, and then kind of from there, how did you find the program and what were you hoping to get out of it?
Absolutely. First, thank you so much for having me on. It's just such an honor. And I'm so excited to talk about the program and what I've gained from it because it's just so much. But I was introduced to the Akashic Records, gosh, I want to say probably the top of 2024.
Okay.
I had a friend who was going through her own program and was looking for people to do some readings with. And everything kind of clicked for me in that moment. I had realized, I mean, I'm an intuitive person. I've known that I've been very intuitive and connected to universe since I was a kid. But it was something that where I grew up, it wasn't it, it just wasn't cultivated, and in many aspects, it was a little bit like freaky. And I'm like, well,
Mm-hmm.
how do you know that? I'm like, I don't know. I just know it.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent a lot of my life just, knowing things and trying to figure out when it was right to tell people the things that I knew.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I knew that there was this spiritual place out there that was different than religion because I grew up in a religious household. And when I did my first reading with my friend, um, it was it was just so clear. Like the fog lifted
Mm-hmm.
and I said, this is what I was looking for. This gave me the language. This gave me the the experiences and the connections that I knew were supposed to be there, but that how somehow were a little bit cut off for me.
Mm-hmm.
So after a couple other readings with her, I realized that I wanted to be able to do this on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a former teacher, and educators look for educators. And so I was scouring the internet, and I came across your website, and I was like, "Oh, this is my person. This
Oh,
is my person." Also an English teacher. Also just really thoughtful about curriculum, really thoughtful about research and validated research. I want to know that things are vetted. I want to know that things come from a place, and I want to understand the why behind everything. And your program offered that. And it was funny because I started it and I was like, oh, I'll just do the first track. I'm not interested in reading for people. It's so interesting how when the universe opens up, the universe opens you up.
yes.
And that's what happened for me during the course. I went from um, I'm a I'm a coach working with people with their personal leadership to um, now the records are telling me that I am a light leader and that I am here to help holistic healers continue to do the good work as people continue to open up.
Yeah.
So all of
Wow.
that in what, 7 months?
Yes.
It's
Yes. What a
remarkable.
journey.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
journey.
it was 7 months. Yeah, and I love how it gradually opened up for you. Like once you got in there, right? It was like, oh, I gotta go all the way.
Oh
You're-
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
because it finally to connect with soul's purpose on such a deep and meaningful and real way,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't my ego trying to convince me what I needed to do. It wasn't my brain or what society told me that I was supposed to do or what success looked like. It was
Yes.
deep, intuitive knowing.
Right.
And when I will use the word surrender, I'm sure, multiple times during our conversation because it's not an easy word for me. But when you I don't know. It's almost like when you release, when you're in the ocean, you allow the ocean or the water to hold you. That's what it was for me.
Wow.
Once I released into this ocean of the records,
Hmm.
I felt held, I felt seen, I felt connected,
Yeah.
and I could hear clearly what my purpose was and what I was
Awesome.
here to do.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
sounds so much like what the records can do for us. Once we let go also of that like inner tension, right? Or like resistance, or I gotta figure all this out from a head kind of
Right.
place, mentally, intellectually. And I love what you're saying about just letting go into those waters of the
Yeah.
records. And then things just flow. And it's just, you're so connected to a much higher place of wisdom, clarity, love, all of that.
Right. And it doesn't happen overnight, friends. Like,
Right. Oh yeah,
take your
we'll get
time.
to that 100%.
Take your time.
Yeah, because I want to hear too. So your friend was studying this and you were getting the readings. And
Yep.
then, so what was the process from kind of receiving a reading from someone else to then starting to go into the records for yourself?
Yeah. Well, I think part of it was she was really working also with some theta healing. So she was
Oh.
combining the records with theta healing, and it was
Mhm.
really cool. And I think when I felt the power of that healing physically, because as somebody I'm a thinker, I like,
Mhm.
I'm in my head all the time. Sometimes it's hard for me to get in my body. And so
Mhm.
she was combining somatic practice with theta healing with Akashic Records and really kind of working her own healing
Yes.
version and
Mhm.
having some of that clearing in my body. I think after my first one, we were working on my throat chakra, and I just had this cough for the rest of the
Oh.
week
Oh yeah.
because it was
Mhm.
my body clearing out.
Yes.
Um, and I realized I'm like, well, you don't, if we wait until we're in crisis before we go to the hospital, right? Then we face a much bigger problem than if we
Yes.
had just gone at the beginning of the symptoms, right?
So true.
And so for me, I was like, I think I have the ability to do this on my own. Um, and then I would seek out help when it became like when I couldn't do the clearing or when I needed something bigger
Right.
or something outside of my own modality, then I would seek somebody else out. But it was just so clear that this was something that I could do and that should be part of my morning routine.
Yes.
And just like you go for a walk to clear your head,
Right.
you go into the records to clear your soul and
Yeah.
to
Oh.
release some of that energy that as intuitives we just pick up, you know.
Oh yeah. Completely.
And I think, yeah, I think for me it was about the health aspect of it. I wanted to be able to maintain a healthy, energetic field.
Yes, it's so important, especially for the work that you are setting out to do in the world. But I want to respond to everything that you said. But one of the things is I love how you're saying, you were making the body part of the process. It's,
Yeah.
as I always say, we don't have to leave our bodies behind to go into the records. In fact, it's quite
Right.
the opposite. Like we want to be as grounded as possible and incorporate the somatic level
Yes.
of insight, healing, intuition, all of that. Because so much or so many, in so many cases, the records speak to us through our bodies as well,
Right.
right? And you're going to get messages in that way too. Um, and I also love what you're saying about, it doesn't have to be either or, like, oh, I can only go to someone else to have this done for me, or I have to learn how to do it myself. Like, we can have both, because sometimes we're still, even as healers, we're going to have blind spots.
Oh,
We're going to
absolutely.
have patterns that we need to continually clear so we can show up at our best. So it's like we need to have both, right, in the toolkit. Yeah.
Right. And I think that, that's such a great analogy. I mean, I just keep coming back to if I move my body every day when I go and see my general practitioner
Yeah.
for my physical, then hopefully my results are, hey, good job. You're moving your body every day.
Right,
Right. But
exactly.
there are
Yes, it's like a,
times.
a, a little tune-up, instead of,
Right.
oh, now you have to get like this massive surgery or this or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that that's because I very much value um our experts and and people who really dedicate their lives to this work,
Yeah.
because there's so many misconceptions about it. There's so much fear around it, and every body is so different with the way that they're connected. And so the more that we can help people get in tune with their body, so and their energy, so they can say, huh, there's something not quite,
Yes.
there's something not quite
Oh,
right, and I'm not getting the result that I need. So
yes.
this is the indication that I need to seek out somebody else to help.
Yes. That's so true. Amazing. So well said. Um, so let's talk a little bit about those, because you said, of course, this is not an overnight process where you just are like a master at knowing how to communicate with the record. So what were some of the initial challenges, if you had to name them?
Gosh. Um,
Yeah.
there's a few. Um,
Okay.
so the first time that I opened the records, um, I remember telling you about it. I was like,
Yeah.
do I belong here?
Oh gosh.
Do I
Yeah.
belong? It felt so to me, somebody walking in, the best picture that I can give it is like when you walk into like a very old sanctuary with these
Mm.
giant cathedral ceilings, and you're
Mm-hmm.
the only person in there,
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
like, do it am I supposed to be here? Is
Yeah.
this okay?
Mm-hmm.
So um I think you, and I remember telling you that you're like, yeah, nope, that's your space. Yes, you belong there.
Right. Fair
Um,
enough.
and I think what so the initial struggle for me was to get from um oh gosh, oh, I'm gonna get emotional. Lesser to partner.
Oh,
And when I
that's
first
big.
entered the records, I felt like this lesser human. I felt
Yeah.
like this, like, do I belong here? Is this right? I just don't know. To now, it's such a partnership.
Yeah.
And it's just such a beautiful expression of, yeah, of partnership and of collaboration and of co-creation, because there's things that I have to experience in my human form in
Yes.
order for the vision, the purpose to play out. And if I'm not open to the partnership, um, then pieces miss. Things
Yes.
go undone. So that was one thing. The other thing was learning how to read my records.
Yes, of course. That's a really big thing. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm mainly a clairvoyant. Like I just know
Okay.
things.
Yeah.
And my other clairs come online here and there. But that was I think comparative. We'd get into class and I'd
Right.
hear all these people describing these amazing, gorgeous places. I'm like, huh, I see four colors,
Yeah.
and
Right.
I just
Right.
know I'm in the records, and I
Right.
know
Right.
that the flipping white light is my book. Right. Like
Right. Right. Yes.
it.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So just understanding that comparison is not at all appropriate
Mm-mm.
in this work. And it's about that deep knowing and understanding. And I think that's the challenge for folks, is that we have to ground into ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
love ourselves deeply, right? Recognize our uniqueness in a way that is almost parental, right? Like coming back to ourselves and saying, look how cute and quirky you are. I love that.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Because once we understand who we are, then it helps us understand that partnership with our record keepers.
Yes.
Um, because that was the other thing that was a little hard, is that they'd show me things. I'm like, I have no idea. I was Googling animals, I was Googling places. I
Yeah.
was like, I'd ask for a teacher and they come out and they're sassy. My record keepers are very sassy. And they're like, well, we already told you. I'm like,
Right. Right.
okay,
Okay, got it.
okay, got it. Could you
Yeah.
maybe a little bit of clarity? No, go look it up. Oh,
Right.
okay,
Right.
okay.
I
Right.
know. Yes. That's okay. The first thing you were saying about shifting from, oh, I'm this tiny little human and the vastness of the records, it's like, can I even be here?
Right.
You're reminding me of another student from a different cohort where she had this experience like I think it was for many months where when she would enter the records, she saw the big doors and then she would see like tiny little version of herself standing at the doors, right? And
Yes.
then eventually we got to a place where we were doing a one-on-one session and we opened her records and she was like, wait, I'm the same size as the doors. Like, I'm as big as the door. Yeah. And
Yes.
your story was reminding me of that, of like, because you get to reconnect to that sense of like magnitude about who you
Absolutely.
are, who you're here to be, your inner divinity. That, yes, of course, we have this smaller human aspect, human personality of ourselves, but we're also so much bigger than
So
that.
much more.
Like, pretty much
Yeah,
infinite, right? And of
exactly.
course, you are equal to the records. You are the records are you. There's no separation.
Right.
And you are here also, both of us and everyone else who does the program and everyone else who works with the records is here to be a human vehicle for the
Absolutely.
records, to be a representative of the records on Earth. Um, but of course, it takes time and practice to develop that
Yep.
relationship, to develop that lexicon and language of how the records are speaking to you. Um, and it takes patience as well, as you said, because sometimes you
Yeah.
ask and they're like, I don't know, go figure it out.
Right.
And
Go
they're
figure it
saying
out.
that, lovingly because they just
Yep.
want to see us grow and expand. Yeah.
Right. And I think that that was something too, as we started doing readings. I started with written readings because it felt safer. I
Yes.
was like,
Yes.
well,
Great point.
maybe if I just, help them refine their question and then I can do this. And it was great because a good friend of mine came back and said, this was good. She's like, but I think this might mean something a little bit different to me. Could we do like a follow up?
Yes.
And it was like the universe was sending me people to help me open up to who I am as a reader. And I
Yeah.
think that's what you did so well in the program too, is that it wasn't just about learning how to connect with the records. It was also learning about who we are uniquely in the world. And that there's 8 billion people on the world. We're not
Oh,
for everyone, but we've
no.
got to be for some.
Right.
And if we're the best and purest expression of ourselves, then we're going to be supportive and helpful for those who seek us out.
Oh,
Um,
yes. It's gonna
you
be
know,
magnetic. It's
yeah,
magnetic to those
right,
people that you have soul level agreements with.
right.
And you're the only one that can read for them or do the session with them in that
In that
unique,
moment.
particular, specific way that that's gonna be so nourishing for
Right.
them. And you're gonna be nourished in return, which is so important too, as a reader, when you're doing it
Yes.
that way and it's like a full creative expression of yourself as well.
And one thing that I would love for people to know too is that so the coaching that I do a lot of coaching utilizing Gallup's Clifton Strengths Finder. It's a psychometric, measures the way that
Gotcha.
you're wired, not the way that you prefer to be in the world. Validated. Okay, sorry, I'm really geeking out about this because I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
this work.
No, I'm so glad. Yeah, you're saying
But
that.
one of the things that I find that I work with people on is that what is right and good about them is what they have been systematically shut down their entire life for because they were misunderstood. So now I come in and I'm shining light on all their brilliance and it's blinding. And they're like, but I'm like, every piece of feedback you take with a grain of salt and you run it through your litmus test of your intuition and the way that you're built. Because somebody might say that you need to be more, well, the biggest one is like extrovert versus introvert. Be more
Oh God.
extroverted.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
no, thank you.
Right.
That's not good
Oh,
for me.
I
That's
know.
not good for me. And it wears me out. And then I get snarky and I'm not nice to people.
Yeah.
So by you giving me feedback to be more outgoing is actually getting the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say as we go into the records and as you learn your way, confidently express that way,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know,
A hundred
um,
percent.
because I struggle. I'm a pretty direct reader.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't spend a lot of time in the surface. I go for roots because I'm like, let's go. Like
Mm-hmm.
you want to be better? Awesome. Let's go. So I've learned to say, are you ready to go for the root?
Yes.
Because if you're
Yes.
not ready to go for the root, I'm not your reader.
Yes. Yes. That is such a key point. And I hope that's something that everyone got a chance to work on in the program in terms of understanding more and more as we went. And it's so valuable to do practice readings with a wide variety of people, questions, issues, because that helps you see, okay, who's my soulmate client, basically? Who's my
Right.
soulmate client? Who's the person who's ready to go there with me to this level of depth, or who's going to be able to collaborate in the session and bring their
Right.
own insights and be receptive and be able to trust the process, trust the records. Like there's so many things that, those standards that we want to hold for the work, for the
Right.
clients, for ourselves, so that it can be the best possible collaboration. Um, but the other thing you're speaking to is, boy, yes, I hear you. Like I feel like being misunderstood is such a core wound for
Mhm.
so many people, especially the intuitives, the highly sensitive, the empaths, right? Um, and also that core wound of shame about being an introvert, which I
Yes.
had to work through for sure, right? All of my childhood, it was like, you stop reading, go outside,
Right. I'm like,
be
well, I guess
be more social. I
I'll
can't
take
do
my
it.
book
It's too
outside. Thank you.
draining. Like, yeah. And just being forced into that and feeling like there's something fundamentally wrong about
Right.
how I am in the world or what I need to be nourished in the world, so on and so forth. So I wonder if you could also share a little bit about, if you want, if you're comfortable, but some of those wounds that for you that the records have helped you
Mm.
heal and move through.
Yeah. One of the things, one piece of feedback that I got as a kid all the time was like, you're weird. How
Oh
do you
God.
know that?
Right.
How do you know that?
Oh,
And I'm
right,
like,
right.
and at that time I had no language because I didn't grow up in a household that expressed themselves through records, right? Or any
Right.
sort of spirituality
I see.
in connection with religion, right? So
Right.
to know something, I wasn't taught that my knowing was was part of my connection to God, to
Oh,
source,
wow.
to
Yeah.
divinity,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So I didn't have the language for it.
Yeah.
So being shut down for something that like, and that was so natural. I mean, it was just so natural. I would walk into spaces and I just knew things and
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I but not everyone thought it was cool. So that was one thing. And then that really developed a little bit into my generalized anxiety. So then it was like, well, is it safe to know things here?
Yeah.
Am I going to be safe? And
Mm-hmm.
so I would say quite a few of my core is all about self-worth
Mm-hmm.
and am I worthy to be in these spaces when I'm showing up as my authentic self, which is a little weird, according to other people.
Right.
Um, which I embrace now, right? Because I
Yeah.
have the language for it. So
Right.
a lot of mine was around like shedding shame and blame, shoulds and woulds,
Yes.
And Brene Brown has this beautiful concept called grounded confidence that I work really hard to help any client that I'm working with realize for themselves. And she essentially says that grounded confidence is that you know who you are well enough to know that when you stumble and you fall, you know how to get up and brush yourself off and keep going
Wow.
without shuddering in shame. Right?
Yeah.
We all stumble.
Right.
And so I try to work with my clients to be able to know themselves enough to be able to show up on their worst day and be able to say confidently, you know what, I'm not at my best today. I'm
Yes.
just not at my best. And if you need something out of me, the best way to do it is email me with the questions, give me some more think time. It's different than how I usually am,
Yeah.
but that's what I need today. Right. And
Yes.
I think the more that we can do that and the more that we can help people realize that you don't have to be perfect, there's no perfection. And honestly, as you're pursuing excellence, there's rest days that are needed there. There's there's days that you're going to trip and you didn't know you're going to strain your ankle and you need to
Yeah.
take a break. And that's what's being human. And that's what the records want. You know, when we really think about God and the divinity within and the divinity around, we're here for an experience. And that human experience isn't one that's unicorns and rainbows all the time.
Right.
And it's not supposed to be,
No.
right? And
Yes.
so it's learning how do we walk through some of our hardest experiences holding our own hand? How do we
Wow.
walk through some of our hardest experiences compassionately, you know? And that's not bypassing, that's not, fine, everything's going to be fine. We're not doing that. But it is recognizing that these wounds, once I figured out that's like self-worth was at the core, it was 15 years of hard therapeutic work
Yeah.
that that was going. I think my dog might be squeaking a toy in the
Oh,
background. I'm not sure if you can hear
that's
it, but I
all good.
can.
I love that. And we can't hear
Okay.
it. Oh.
So anyway, so yeah, being shut down as an intuitive,
Yes.
and then just that idea of like the feedback that I would get is that I'm intimidating, that I
Oh,
am
yes.
bold,
Too much, right? I
too
heard that. I
much.
heard that all the time.
Yeah.
So, and then
And
you try to tone yourself down, and then you're like, oh, wait, no. Which again goes back to that whole thing we were saying about reconnecting to this brilliance and
yes.
magnitude of who you are
Yeah.
here to be. And that you don't have to shrink so that others are gonna feel like, oh, okay, you're not being weird anymore. Like,
Right.
that's
Right.
okay.
And when I have the language to it, when I have the language, when somebody kind of looks at me weird, I'm like, yeah, so
Mm,
this
right.
is one of my strengths is that I'm
Right.
really intuitive. And when I walk into spaces, I can feel it, I can know it. I'll
Yeah.
say things that people don't expect, not because I have insider information. It's just that it's kind of the way that I'm built.
Right.
So if you have
Yes.
questions about that, ask me,
Right.
right? But
Right.
that's a totally different posture
Yeah.
than coming in like,
Oh, yeah.
uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you
Like
know,
tentative and or
right.
you're defensive or yeah, completely
Yeah.
different way of being in the world. And yes, you're speaking so much to like just radical self-acceptance, right? And
Oh,
not
absolutely.
even
Yeah.
acceptance, but like radical self-embracing. Just embracing who you
Yeah.
are, loving it, expressing it. It's all good and beautiful and needed. Like you are
Yeah.
unique in your own way for specific reasons in
Right.
service of your purpose. That's what you're here to do. That's who you're here to be.
Right.
But I also love your point about it's not going to be unicorns and rainbows. I think sometimes there's a misconception that, okay, once I start working with the records, everything's going to get fixed, quote
Oh,
unquote.
right.
And every time I go in, it's gonna be easy peasy and fireworks, and it's gonna be so clear, and I'm never gonna have an off day again, which is not true. I prefer to phrase it as the more we work with the records, it's not that everything just feels good all the time, but rather that we
No.
get better at feeling. We get better at
Yes.
feeling. and being with all of the emotions, not overly attaching to them, like not making them bigger than they are, but not making them smaller than they are either, just letting them flow through, accepting them. And also, as you said, being so mindful of what do I need as a human on a moment by moment basis.
Right.
Like, do I need rest? Do I need activity? Do I need hydration? Like, whatever it might be, even really simple things, but where you're just so much more attuned to
And
yourself.
that's it, right? And the attunement, I think, is what we're after. And I will say that it took probably the first 3 months of class
Yeah.
for me to start to feel like um I was starting to, sorry, I have the records open and they keep showing me
Oh,
the attic.
that's,
Like it took me 3 months to clean out the attic.
oh, yeah.
And so that like I could walk through it and it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't so dusty and there wasn't just clutter
Yeah.
in there accumulating.
Mm-hmm.
So but see that, but nobody else could clean out my attic, right?
Yeah.
I had to clean out the attic because it was my stuff that was in there. So
Yeah.
I had to go through it and I had to decide, is this worth staying? Is this does this get donated? Does this get thrown out? I had a Marie Kondo up in here.
Yeah.
Um,
Right. Yeah. Does it bring you joy? Then you
does
keep
it
it.
bring me joy? Get out
Right.
of here.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh.
but and I think that we oftentimes I think people don't understand how much we are picking up as we just walk through the world energetically,
Oh gosh,
right?
I know.
So without grounding practices, without cleansing practices, um, just how I feel so much lighter just because I call my energy back to me
Mm-hmm.
and I then cleanse it of any negativity that was on it, right? Like these
Mm-hmm.
are things that just hygiene, spiritual
Oh
hygiene.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um,
So key.
yeah. And so, I mean, and I think that these are the things where I was like, I kind of knew it, but I didn't have the language for it.
Mm,
And the course gave me the language. It gave me the source. It gave me the ability to practice with other people.
mm-hmm.
Um, and it gave me the opportunity to very consciously come back to myself.
Yeah. I'm so glad. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what how it felt for you. That's amazing. Um, And of course, that process of cleaning out your attic also took its own time, right?
Yep.
It's like I just had a student ask me, can we which is a great question. She said, can we control or do we have any control over the speed at which we receive
Mm,
information from the records? I paused for a minute and I was like, I don't know. I don't think we do. I think, we can control, it's like it's going to happen.
yeah.
Depends on our level of readiness, depends on how receptive we are. So those are the things we do have control over. Like, what's the frequency you're cultivating when you're showing up to open the records? How are you clearing yourself out of fear,
Right.
resistance, internal noise? Because all of those things are gonna basically, slow things down. Um, so we can't control the speed. We have to allow it to happen in its own perfect timing, trusting it's for our highest good and healing. But certainly we have influence over how we're showing up, the state of being that we're
Right.
holding as we show up, as we go into the records, which is like a healing process in and of itself. When you say it's like being able to cultivate and then sustain that state of being so you can match the frequency of the
Right.
records.
Yeah. And, as, I think about that question and I think about what's your motivation,
Right.
right? What's the
Yes.
motivation for speeding things up? Is it that, like, what's that feeling that you're trying to address? Is
Yes.
there a little bit of desperation there? Is there a little bit of uncertainty there? Or is it really like, is it impatience?
Right.
Um,
Completely. Yes.
and I think sometimes when we can name what the motivation is, then it helps us get clear about the work and the steps that it really takes to
Yes.
get to that place. I think about I'm training for a race right now.
Oh.
I like to run trails, and by run I mean hike and jog. I don't even jog.
Oh.
It's like I barely get to a jog.
I
But it's a
hear
lot of fun
you.
for
Yeah.
me. I love being
Yeah.
out there. And I'm training for a 10-mile race. Well, I can't, I mean, I could wake up tomorrow and try to go force my body
Right.
to run those 10 miles, but why?
Right. I
Like
know.
what's the purpose of that? Um, so I think when we think about, and because there's been plenty of time where I'm like, really, we can't go faster on this one? No.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah. I mean, all of my life,
okay.
I totally related to that question because all of my life, which, and just up until recently that I was able to like fully heal it. But all of my life, I had this as an adult, I had this sense of urgency, inner
Mhm.
rushing. I gotta be 3 steps ahead than I am right now. So, which I think sometimes we're just conditioned in that
Oh,
way to like, or
absolutely.
to be hyper productive or whatever the pattern is. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think if we can get open to the records, telling us a slower roll,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
listen for what's the root. But see, and I think that that's something too, is that I spend a lot of time trying to heal symptoms,
Oh, that's a
right?
good one.
That were all rooted in spiritual healing,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Because
Hmm.
I didn't know that there was that option out there. And
Yes.
when I started to really see myself as the holistic combination of mental well-being, physical well-being, spiritual well-being, the sinew tissue of emotions and energy and
Yes.
experiences,
Yeah.
right? And when I could see that it was almost like a constant um cell, right? And it
Yes.
flows and it ebbs and flows. And so sometimes the energy is in the physical because your physical body is asking for more. And so
Hmm.
we're gonna push some of that experience and that energy to work in that physical, and then we're gonna pull and back, right? And so I
Yes.
think it's this flowy dance. And
Hmm.
I think our society likes precision.
Yeah.
I think our society likes productivity.
Yeah.
And I think what the records offer us is the ability to shed those external expectations
Yeah.
and then invite in what resonates.
Yes.
So I love being productive. Like I
Oh, of
like,
course. And the
and
records can
so
help us be more productive in the
exactly
most aligned ways without depleting ourselves, right? It's
right.
yes. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And that I think is it.
it's so true what you're saying too about I think sometimes we've been conditioned to have this all or nothing cognitive dysfunction, right? Or
Yes.
like everything's black or white, especially these days in the world, where it's like
Yeah.
us versus them. That's the enemy, that's the demon, whatever. Just with whatever's going on all of the time, things are coming at us. And I think the records can help us like be in the gray area or be
Yes.
able to see both sides, be able to see from a higher vantage point. Okay, what is actually going on in myself, in the world? Like, how do I move through that in the most truthful way for me? Like, what is the truth for me?
Right.
If we strip away all of that conditioning and just ways of thinking and being that don't really serve us.
Right. And I think that that's one of the things too, is that with 8 billion people on the planet, that's 8 billion versions of God.
Wow. Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
that's 8 billion unique bodies signed up for unique
Yep.
experiences on this planet. And not we're not part of everyone's story. And it's okay to not be part of everyone's story. In
Yeah.
fact, maybe just be the main character of yours and try not
Mhm.
to be a villain in others.
Oh, that's if only everyone would hold that as a value for life, right?
Right?
Like, what if we could all just move through life, at least, at the very least, like not making things worse or more complicated for other people? It would be
Right.
incredible. But, work in progress. I think we're all
Work in progress. And that's
trying
the
to get.
thing is like, yeah. And can you bring some grace to the game?
Yeah.
right? Like, I think we are in an evolutionary pattern where we're pushing through and starting to shed some systems that may, I don't, I'm not sure that they've ever been appropriate, but
Right.
right, that may have made a little bit more sense prior to all the research and the learning that we've learned about our human bodies and our brains and what we are able to do. My master's is in human development. I am fascinated with humans. And I think I'm fascinated with humans because we are learning so much more about our brains every single day.
Right.
And neuroplasticity is a big thing,
Yep.
right? So we can learn new brain patterns, we can learn new ways. And I think we're in an evolutionary time frame where we're being challenged to learn how to let it go, right? How to get curious versus defensive.
Yeah.
How to, we've been talking a lot in our global conversation about mental capacity and that
Hmm.
how our brains are built for survival.
Hmm.
Well, not everything's a saber-toothed tiger trying to kill us, but
Hmm.
we have to train our brains the difference between our poorly calendared calendar, me, and an actual saber-toothed tiger, which no longer exists and therefore not trying to kill me.
Right. Right.
Um, and so in this evolution, we're trying to strip ourselves of punitive systems, strip ourselves of this either or argument. Either you have to be right and I have to be wrong,
Right.
or um, and I think people are really uncomfortable because the
Yeah.
veil, because as people are saying, well, maybe there's a better way, the veil thins.
Yeah.
And their record keepers are like,
Oh,
giddy
it's
up,
it's
come on
so true.
in.
It's so true. Yes, I that makes so much sense how you're describing that. It's so true. I know. And then they retreat, well, some not always, but sometimes we retreat back, right? Just as a knee-jerk reaction, like, oh, I'm not gonna go there.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because it's scary. And it's something that we don't necessarily talk in our, like spirituality, I think has been captured and caged in religion. And those
Hmm.
two things aren't synonymous. Religion is one expression of spirituality,
Hmm.
but again, it's external. It's
Right.
something that is delivered to us from somebody else. And it I just want people to be careful. You can't outsource your
Okay.
purpose to something else.
Hmm.
Like religion may help you go within and pray and connect. Um, but if it's but if we're giving too much power to that,
Yeah.
then it's actually taking away from our connection to God and the God
Right.
within. And so
Yes.
it's just like this balance.
It's so true. I
And
know.
and I love the church. My mom loves the church. I don't go to church. I'm your unchurched friend, but I appreciate people's expressions this way. I just want people to understand like those, they're not synonymous. They're not the
Right.
same.
Yes. So good. And that we don't need an intermediary
No.
as you said, to connect to the God within, which sometimes we forget
Yeah.
that that's always there. It's always there, even though
Right.
sometimes feels like, oh, I've lost it, but you haven't. Like it's still there. You just clear out a little bit of the fear, a little bit of the noise, and it's right there, and
It's
you
right
can,
there.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's brilliant, right?
Yes.
So as you dig, be ready to see what is so gorgeously right about yourself, which again, in our culture, we are very negative biased and we focus on weakness and deficit. We don't focus on asset and what is right and good. So uh, be ready because
Yes.
it's brilliant. It can be blinding, but man, when you get used to the light,
It's true. You adjust to it
you
gradually,
do,
and
you
then,
adjust to it and you see so much clearer. That's a thing too, as I was going through the program and connecting more and learning how to be spiritually hygienic.
mm,
I like this crispness of my vision in real time was just so like technicolor, man. Like It
Yeah.
was no longer dull. It was like moving from, 1080 pixel to 4K. Like
Right.
things are clearer.
Wow.
And when it, but it takes time. And
Right.
and I think we are in a very like high demand, fast society. And I'm like, oh, but you can't rush to the top of Mount Everest. You'll die. Like,
Yes.
so
Yes.
maybe just enjoy and
Right.
acclimate
I
and then
know.
enjoy and then acclimate and then you'll get to the top.
Yes, you totally will. I yelled just now, yes, because in the program we were just talking about with the new cohort, we were just talking about the spiritual path and spiritual growth and development as we're using the metaphor of mountain climbing
Yeah.
and how you need to acclimate to the air and the different oxygen up there, and you need to be prepared and you need to understand, okay, sometimes you're going to get exhausted and you have to stop and you have to
Yes.
rest. Sometimes you have to stop and look back and see, oh, look how far I've come, and actually acknowledge yourself, which is something, again, we've been programmed not to do, and just to not celebrate ourselves and be like, what's the next thing I can produce or achieve or be successful at? So taking that time to see, how far we've traveled, rest, get ready for the next leg, and you just keep on going, and it's just
Yeah.
this ever unfolding path.
Right. And I think that that's the thing too is like I think on all of our journeys, on all of our mountains, there is this beautiful time in which you feel maybe that motivation shift,
Yeah.
right? Where maybe I started this out externally wanting to quote unquote fix
Yeah.
something.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, as you continue, there is this gratitude that comes over. You're like, look at what I get to do.
Mm-hmm.
Look at me. Like I'm doing this and it's no longer for anyone else. It is for that step by step experience that we get to be present for.
Yes.
And in a world that is so full of noise and so full of distraction and so full of fear, right? Like the I'm like, don't stop eating it, right?
Yeah.
Just because they serve it to you doesn't mean that you have to ingest it,
Yes. I
right?
know.
And this, people are talking about revolution and talking about change. I'm like, you know what? It's the change within, friends,
Yeah.
right? Like pick up your armor of love.
Yeah.
And when I say love, I mean self love. Do that first,
Yes.
right? Recognize that you are worthy and that because you're worthy, only because you take breath, that anyone else on this planet taking breath, worthy.
Yes.
They have
I
a
know.
purpose.
Yes. I know. It's
And I
so,
think,
yeah.
yeah,
Like, I just sacred pause because we need to let that sink in. That's huge. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, and also what you're saying about we can't create a revolution if we ourselves are still led by the ego.
right,
Like, we're not going to get there that way.
right.
So, of course, it's cleaning house internally first
Mhm.
and getting aligned with ourselves first. And then from there, going out and leading. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up ego because as we go back to the question many minutes ago
Yeah.
about core wounds,
Awareness.
when I started the program, I was like, my ego is fierce. And
Yeah.
you helped me reframe. You said, you're like, well, what if your ego is just your ego?
Oh,
What if
yeah.
what if your ego is trying to tell you something? And the shift from, and then this is what I think is a myth as well when we think about spirituality, is that there's no arrival, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not like you arrive and
Mm-hmm.
everything like, oh, ego, is no longer with me. I'm like, no, ego's always with you. The shape ego takes may change depending on what it's trying to protect you from, but ego doesn't. ego doesn't go away. You don't fix,
No.
like, ego is part of you.
Right.
And it's an important part because it's the part that says, hey, hey, pay attention. You're about to die because you're going to step off that cliff. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the role of ego.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the right role of ego.
Mm-hmm.
But it's when ego thinks that everything's a cliff. That's the
Right.
problem,
Right. I
right?
know. Yes. Especially anything outside of our little comfort zone, right? Is a
Yes.
cliff to ego. And ego's like,
Yep.
nope, nope, not gonna let you go there.
Right.
Oh.
Right. And it gets tricky. I mean, I was doing a reading with Marielle
Oh,
Smith, and who was somebody in my cohort, and she's
yes.
delightful.
Yeah.
But we were doing a reading, and she said, "Oh, ego's got you on all sorts of side quests."
Oh, wow. That's a good
Yeah.
insight. Okay.
And I was like, "Oh," because as I continue to shed shame and blame, ego's best friends,
Yep.
um, because those are cloaks of protection,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not very nice and they're very heavy.
No. Yeah.
Um, but they're ego's best friends. And so when you
Yeah.
can start to recognize that you have a relationship with your ego, you have a relationship with your inner child, you have a relationship with your higher self, you have a partnership with your records, um, and you matter in all of that, right?
Yeah.
At the core of it, you're here for a reason,
Yes.
but it's
Yes.
nobody else's job but yours.
Right. Nobody can tell you. Nobody
Nobody can
outside
tell
of you
you.
can tell you. Yeah. That's a big one too, because people sometimes are very confused about what
Yeah.
that reason could be, right? And of course, it's only natural to be like, someone else, just tell me.
Just tell me.
Right?
I
Just
get
tell
that. I'm
me.
like,
And tell me
just
if
tell me.
I do X, Y, and Z, then everything's gonna turn out brilliantly for me. And unfortunately, there's no such person that can
No, not
tell
even
us
your record keepers.
that. I
Because
know.
you'll go in there, you're like, just show me. And they're like,
I,
here's a pebble.
yeah, I
Pick this
know.
one up first.
Yeah, try this out. Try this
Yeah,
out,
try
and
this
then
out.
course correct and see how
Yep.
it goes. I know. It's true,
Ah.
but that is what it is. It's like that because they're empowering us to
Yeah.
be true collaborators,
Yes.
active participants and agents of our lives, and to go out and do the thing and then see what happens and then keep experimenting and get more guidance. And that's just what life is like.
Here it is, right?
Yeah.
I I taught high school English for years and I taught seniors and I would say, "Welcome to the beginning of the end." And they're like, "What?" I'm like, "This is the end of your K through 12 experience.
Yeah.
This will be your last prom, your last homecoming, your last whatever." And all of them were like, "What?" I'm like, "And here's the deal. You will get to graduation and you have not arrived. It's just another experience."
Yes.
And they're like,
Yes.
"What?" But I thought, I'm like, "No, no. 18 is not a magical number. It's just a number. And if you've arrived, you've died before you've died, right? Like
Oh,
there is
yes.
no arrival.
Right.
It's
It's so
constant
true.
learning."
Yes. And whether it's 18 or it's like 65 or
Right.
80 or
Right.
whatever, right? It's like it's still the beginning of something always. Yeah,
Always.
always.
Always. Yeah.
What an amazing conversation.
Oh, we could do
Before
this all day.
Oh, I think people can tell that we could. Maybe we should. Um,
Maybe.
but before we close, tell us how you're using the records now and the work that you are up to and how people can connect and explore that if they feel called.
Absolutely. So, yeah, when I had gone through the program initially, I really did think that I was only going to read for myself. And then I signed up for the next portion, which was the master practitioner portion, because I realized I have worth and I have a purpose and I am here to serve. So, we I have two gritty healers. That's what we call ourselves, because we are not unicorns and light. You come to
Right.
us when you're
Yeah,
ready.
there's no fluff. There's no
Nope, there
fluff.
is no fluff
Yeah.
here. No. So you come to us when you're ready to reach in and grab the root. And that's why we're called Grafted Roots. So you can find us at graftedroots.net. We are a global community for the intersection of spirituality and social justice. We truly believe that when you empower yourself and you start to heal all your holistic self, mental, physical, spiritual, that personal evolution is what leads to a social revolution. And so in this community, you'll find like-minded folks who are also searching to make their communities more socially just.
Amazing. Yeah, that is
Yeah.
incredible. And again, so needed in the world
Yeah,
today.
I'm really excited. The coaching is over there as well.
Great.
So if you are interested and you're curious, you want to have a conversation, by all means you can. But really, we're really excited about this community of like-minded folks that's safe. It's a psychologically safe community. We vet people who come in. It's really for people who are ready to take it to the next level, who truly believe that social justice means freedom for all, and that every human has worth and every human has purpose, and they want to bring that out in themselves and others.
Yeah.
So we're really excited about it. We're just getting started, but we would love to have folks come and join us.
Yes, that is incredible. And to have that place of belonging
Yes.
for healers, for those of us who are doing this work, where sometimes you can feel isolated or you get
Yeah.
drained or you sometimes lose sight of your purpose a little bit and you need to reconnect to that.
Yep.
So to have that place of support and belonging and just being seen and collaborating is so huge. Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. And grafting, in plant life, to graft is it's a gnarly process, right? You have to
Oh,
find a hardy stock. So
mm-hmm.
you've got to figure out, like, where is your worth? We all have
Oh,
it. So you've got to find that good root, and then you actually splice that open and you graft another root into it.
right.
And that and then you wrap that, and as that heals, then the graft takes shape and takes hold. So
Oh,
we're in constant grafting, right? Like, and sometimes that can be really painful, but on the other side
yes.
is where the beauty is. And so
Yes.
we're there to help cultivate the right environment for you to feel safe and secure as you're grafting your roots, so
Yes.
that you can go and serve your communities even better.
Wow. I love that description. That feels so vivid. I feel it in my gut as you describe it that way. That's so good.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have the link to the community in all of the places. So video description, episode description, so people can go check that out. And again, thank you so, so, so much for sharing your experiences in the program and with the records and all of the good work you're doing
Yeah.
in the world.
I just want to say, if you were on the fence, if you're on the fence, you're like, well, I don't know, it's an investment. I will tell you right now, it is one of the best investments you can make in yourself. And Josephine is one of the strongest, most pure guides. And she takes the time to know you individually. She takes the time to meet you where you're at. And this is a community and a cohort learning that is very powerful. And it's never too late. I am turning 51 in July, and it's one of the most life-giving experience that I've ever done.
Wow.
So
That
if you're on the fence, get off.
that
The
means
world needs you.
so much. That means so much. I am receiving that, putting it in my
Yay.
heart for those days when I'm like, well, how do I keep going, right? But hearing those things, it's like you're just renewed for the
Yeah.
work ahead. So thank you so very
Yeah,
much.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
thank you everyone for tuning in. We hope this conversation has been helpful. Do check out Julie's work and community. And also, you can always connect by going to josephinehartman.com. We'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.
Bye bye.